Hello YouTube! I'm at beautiful Starved Rock State Park near Utica, Illinois, and I'm going to take you to a cave in a canyon where three middle-aged women were found brutally murdered on mid-March of 1960. On a Monday, March 14th of 1960, Frances Murphy, 47, Mildred Lindquist, 50, and Lillian Oding, 50, checked in at the Starved Rock Lodge for a 4-day excursion of hiking and birdwatching, of which they would never return alive. The women were close friends from Riverside, Illinois, and were all married to prominent businessmen and attended the Riverside Presbyterian Church. Lillian, who had spent the previous few months nursing her husband after a heart attack, was especially looking forward to the trip to this beautiful part of Illinois. Hotel staff at the park's lodge remembered the arrival of the three happy ladies. Frances Murphy had parked her gray station wagon, and the friends unloaded their small luggages. They booked 2 rooms, dropped off their bags, and then ate lunch in the dining room. Later on, they mentioned to one of the employees that it was a gorgeous day for a hike, and the three left the inn with their camera and binoculars. I am now walking the trail towards St. Louis Canyon, where the women will be found dead, which is less than a mile from the lodge. At that time, a dusting of snow had just blanketed the popular Starved Rock State Park, which got its name from a rock fortress on the Illinois River, where a band of Indians were besieged in the 17th century by another warring tribe. As their numbers decreased from starvation, desperate warriors attempted to escape only to be slaughtered in the surrounding forest, hence the name Starved Rock. The park is renowned for its natural wonder, beautiful waterfalls, and stunning canyons, as you will see. The three friends were wearing rubber galoshes to protect themselves from the snow. They trudged and slipped along, enjoying the surroundings, pausing occasionally to take photographs of one another, oblivious to the tragedy that would strike them. After a mile of walking, the women ended down here at St. Louis Canyon, and they were amazed to see high rocky walls, steep cliffs, and an impressive frozen waterfall. Lillian took several pictures of the canyon using Frances Murphy's camera. When she was finished, the group turned to head back to the lodge, and then things went horribly wrong as they came across someone who brutally took their lives. Now I'm going to tell you my own account of what I think happened. When the women were heading back to the lodge, they were approached by the assailant, who was pretending to be lost. And when he got close enough to Frances Murphy, the attacker grabbed her leather camera case, thinking it was a purse, and tried to make a run for it. The three middle-aged ladies, who were quite fit and were having none of this, fought back and quickly grabbed the perpetrator and tried to retrieve the camera. A tug-of-war ensued, and the leather strap to the camera case broke off. Either the perpetrator tried to run and the women gave chase, or the attacker got angry and came after the ladies. A fight ensued, and one of the women managed to scratch the assailant's face and pull his hair. However, he quickly picked up a thick tree limb and used it as a weapon against the women. He swung the log like a baseball bat and hit the women several times, but the resilient women still fought back. At the end of the struggle, the attacker got the best of them, and soon they were quickly subdued. The man proceeded to tie the women up, but one of the women broke free and tried to make a run for it, but the assailant came after her and knocked her on the head, rendering her unconscious. The three women now were either dead or dying, and the attacker decided to drag their bodies inside this cave to hide them from authorities. And to make sure they were dead, the attacker hit their head a few more times with an icicle. They wouldn't be found until 2 days later. That same evening, the staff at the lodge were unaware the three came back. Lillian's husband George called the inn to check on his wife and was told by the staff that she wasn't available, but was reassured that she would call him back Tuesday morning. However, when she didn't call back the next morning, George called the lodge again. The hotel receptionist who answered his call mistakenly told him that the three women had been seen at breakfast and were simply out of the lodge at that time. The receptionist told George that they would leave a note at their room to tell him that he called. Worried, George called the husbands of Mildred and Francis, and they too haven't received any calls from the women. That night, a winter storm hit the area and several inches of snow covered the park. Wednesday morning, and still no word from the women, George called the lodge and insisted that they check their rooms and found that the beds and bags were unmade. Their station wagon was also in the parking lot, so they hadn't left the hotel. As soon as George was informed that his wife and the other women were not at the lodge, he contacted the authorities and a search party was quickly formed to look for the women. Later that Wednesday, their bloody and battered bodies were discovered inside this cave. They had been bludgeoned and lined up in a row on their backs. Some of the clothing was torn off and their legs were spread open. Two of the women had been bound with white twine and they were nude from the waist down, and all three women showed signs of sexual assault. The heavy snowstorm on Tuesday wiped away potential evidence such as foot and handprints of their killer, or perhaps the murderer's blood. As authorities removed the bodies, news of the shocking murders had already begun to tear across the region, and a difficult hunt for their killer began. Detectives determined that the killer or killers worked in the lodge because of the twine used to tie them up matched the twine found in the hotel kitchen. They zeroed into a former dishwasher by the name of Chester Otto Weger, age 21, who had a criminal past that involved rape and robbery. Weger failed several polygraph tests and, after days of intense questioning from the police, confessed to the murders. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Weger later recanted and claimed he was coerced and framed by detectives to confess to the murders by forceful threats, and to this day he denies killing the women. In 2020, Weger was pardoned after spending 60 years behind bars, and at age 83 remains a free man. There are two camps to this case. One is Chester Weger is the sole murderer of the three women, and the other one is that he is innocent and was clearly framed for the killings. There is a theory that multiple people were involved in the murders because Weger was small in stature and could not have subdued and killed all three women by himself. There was no physical evidence linking him to the scene of the crime, and no witnesses placed him there. Several hairs found in the victim's hands did not match Weger's, but who do they belong to? In 1983, a deathbed confession of a woman who wanted to clear her conscience claims that she and her friends killed the women and dragged their bodies in the cave. But the interview was cut short by the dying woman's daughter saying that she was not in her right mind and told police to leave immediately. The alleged confession was not allowed into the court hearings. New DNA tests were ordered and the hairs were recently tested, and it truly did not belong to Weger. Now that DNA analysis is becoming more advanced and the remaining DNA left at the crime scene might clear Weger's name or not. Well, what do you think? Did Chester Weger commit these murders or was he framed? That is it for now. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on my next story.